All right, everybody. Week 12 vocabulary. We have our basic words, our tier 1 words, and our context words, tier 2. These are words that you're going to have to need. You're going to need a little bit of context in order to figure out what definition that that the word's being used. If it's a multiple meaning word, how is it being used, right? That's tier 2. You're going to need some context for that. And then another tier 1 set, commonly used words, right? So here's what we'll do first. I'll go over all the words. I'll read the word and the definition, and that way you'll have it on your video so you can get your definitions done tonight. Basic words, tier 1. Substitute. Substitute. A person or thing serving in a place of the original, right? Serving in place of the original. Now, how many of you have heard of the word substitute? Yes, if you've ever been in a school, you've heard of a substitute. Have we had a substitute this year? Yes, a few times we have. Not for me, you haven't. So, boredom. Boredom. Being in a state of having nothing to do or not interested in anything. How many of you have been bored before? You've suffered from boredom. Rambled. Rambled. To talk on and on and on without really saying anything specific. You ever met someone that rambles? Yeah. Gesture. Gesture. That's a soft G. Gesture. Chur. It makes the chur sound too, right? Gesture. Are you seeing this? Okay. To make a motion with your hands or face that tells others you are thinking something, right? Right? Now we'll do the other common words real quick, and then we'll save the tier 2 words for the end. So common words, tier 1. Barely, only just a little, almost not at all. How many of you barely done something before, right? I barely touched him. Your little brother or sister starts crying. I barely touched him, right? Rescue. Rescue. To save someone or something from a bad situation. Right? We know what rescue means. How about countdown? An act of counting numbers backwards to 0. You've seen a launch of a rocket. They count from 10, or I think they count from 1. But how about this one? Irate. To have a great amount of anger. How many of you have seen someone irate? Yeah, you have. At least once or twice this year. All right. Here are our context words. These are tricky ones. Studios. Pardon me. Studious. Studious. This word right here is called studious. Spending a lot of time studying or reading. A hard-working student. I see some studious students in here. All right. Ringleader. A person who is the one in charge or the leader of a group, right? The ringleader. How many of you know someone who's the ringleader? Okay. Yeah. Legitimate. Legitimate. Something that is actually true and of serious concern, right? How about this one? I'm legit for show. Straight away. Straight away. To do or say something right away without hesitation. Right? How many of you have done something straight away before? Oldega, how about you? How about obligated? Obligated. See it right there? To do something someone asks or describes to please them, right? To do it as they ask you to do it. You're obligated. You feel you better do it, right? You feel obligated. Well, I've got to go to this party. I already said I was going to do it. I'm obligated, right? Made a commitment. Now you're obligated.
You promise.
Oblivious. To have no clue what is going on around you. Yeah, I know some of you are oblivious sometimes. Right? Oblivious. To have no clue what is going on around you. All right, here we go. So there are your definitions. So now let's read the ringleader. And now, only when I say the word, I would like to hear the dings when you hear vocabulary words. Okay, here we go. For the most part, Zoe was a quiet and studious 4th grader. Wait till I say it. One day, her class had a terrible substitute teacher named Mrs. George. By lunch, everyone was so bored that they right? That's a ding. That they could barely stay awake. Ding.
Ding.
Bored and barely. Let's go. Come on, guys.
Forward up.
That doesn't matter. It's a form of the word bored.
Stay down here.
Just 1 second. We're almost done. Okay? It was a legitimate problem.
Ding.
Zoe decided to be the ringleader
Ding.
and rescue her class from the certain death by boredom.
Ding.
She decided that the class would create paper airplanes and throw them at Mrs. George when she turned her back to write on the board. To turn her plane into reality, Zoe started with the troublemakers. It was an easy job. They said yes straight away.
Ding.
Next were the goody-goody kids who eventually obligated.
Ding.
Planes were obliged. Okay? Planes were being designed underneath desks as Miss George rambled on and on. She was totally oblivious
Ding.
to the class. When the planes were ready and Mrs. George turned her back, Zoe gave the gesture to launch. 3, 2, 1, went the countdown. And then 32 paper airplanes flew straight at Mrs. George's. She turned and was hit with several in the face. She was irate and demanded to know who was responsible. All 31 of Zoe's classmates looked in her direction. Mrs. George kept Zoe after school and took away her recess all week. But then she said something interesting. "You are our leader, Zoe. I only hope you use your leadership for good." Okay, all right. So, today, you'll use this video. And you know what? What did I say? Obligated here?
Yeah.
That's obliged. You see how, though, honestly, when I read it in context, I said the word right. I read it up here wrong. But that's what context does. I was reading it in context and knew right away, oh, that's obliged, right? Those kids obliged, which means they finally agreed to do it. To do as someone asked or describes to them, right? They obliged, right? So, you're going to use this video to define your words. You can also use dictionary.com to define the words. All right, Tadero out.